I'm free now, he said. I'm finally human again. I used to work night shifts cleaning an old hospital. Most of the building was empty. A newer, modern hospital had opened up in town. The patients left behind were mostly old, terminal, and waiting for their last days. But there was one wing no one ever touched. Hall 7. The staff that had been working there longer than I had told me stories about Hall 7. We rarely had to go there, except when we had to get certain supplies. As I was the cleaner, when my supplies ran out, Hall 7 was the place I had to go to refill. I usually avoided it as much as I could, but tonight I had no choice. My supplies needed a refill, so I went. The stories the staff told me screamed loudly in my head every time I went for a supply run. So it did tonight as well. The stories of the old man that was hospitalized for a tumor as big as a basketball. His stomach had ballooned so far it looked ready to split. His skin stretched thin and glossy, purple veins crawling around it like worms. Nurses whispered it was like watching a pregnant man, except the child inside was nothing but rot. One night, the man rang the bell, but the new nurse working the night was so disgusted and afraid of the look of his stretched stomach that she ignored him. He rang and rang, the bell echoing down the hall, until the nurse covered her ears. She couldn't bring herself to look at him. After an hour, the bell went silent. The hospital remained quiet until the nurse clocked out and went home, not checking in on the poor patient all night. The morning came, and so did the new staff that clocked in. A new nurse went to check on the man, and, to her horror, the man wasn't laying in his bed. She found him on the floor. His abdomen was a ragged pit, flesh peeled back like wet wallpaper, the edges glistening with blood and pus. In his right hand, the scalpel. In the other, the tumor. The tumor was slick, pale, threaded with veins that pulsed weakly, as if it was alive. It was round, obscene, perfect parody of life. He grinned at the nurse, lifted it high, and slammed it to the floor. Splat, splat, splat. Each bounce sprayed red arcs across the wall, a rain of meat and fluid. The man had cut the tumor out himself, but he wasn't dead. The blood was pouring out of the wide, open, gaping hole. The patient turned his head and looked the nurse straight in her eyes as he continued to bounce his tumor like a ball on the floor. The sound bouncing up and down was a gut-wrenching splat, splat, splat. The nurse backed out the door, screaming in horror, as the patient's mouth widened. I'm free now, he whispered. I'm finally human again. A few minutes later, the man died. It's a horrifying story that I always dismissed in hopes that humans are way more caring for each other than this. I just couldn't believe it. The workers that told me that story were not employed when they claimed this took place. An urban legend of sorts. The story lingered. It screamed in my brain when I headed to the supply closet in Hall 7. The walk to Hall 7 was suffocating. The air reeked of disinfectant, pus, and death. With the vents broken so long ago, the stench of wounds and alcohol clung to every breath I took. The stench so pungent, making everyone who came in contact with it lose hope. I reached the end of Hall 6, turning right to the corridor leading to Hall 7, turning again, now reaching the double doors to my destination. Hall 7 was dark. I ran my hand along the wall until I found the light switch. Lights turned on, flickering and unreliable. With the supply closet in sight, straight down the hall, I began my walk. The corridor itself felt so long, but that was also the case. It was quiet, only the sound of the lights buzzing. Trying to keep my mind occupied on anything other than that story, I started to whistle the tune of Stand By Me, a song my mom and I always whistled when I was worried as a kid. A kind of comfort in the pressing feeling of the hall. The windows into the rooms were dark, not operating in the same light system as the light switch. Everything was fine, until a loud bang. My chest tightened, my breathing was loud, heart pounding as loudly in my chest. I tried to control my body as I slowly backed toward the wall. Another noise, now a clunking sound, sharp metal scraping onto the floor. I was standing with my back against the wall, almost merging together with the concrete behind me. Facing the opposite wall, a patient room where the repeated sound came from. The large, uncurtained window, dark as night. I felt like a zoo animal, with the flickering lights above shining down on me with an unnerving sense of being watched. The sound got louder and louder. Then, it suddenly stopped. As I gained control of my body and started to walk away, just a few steps into my escape, I heard a loud thud on the window coming from the patient room. I turned my head, and that's when my stomach turned. In the window, close as can be, stood a man. A man with his eyes wide open, staring at me with the widest grin I'd ever seen. His eyes were locked onto mine. He raised his hands, both holding objects. A sharp, glistering scalpel, and a large, round, white, gooey ball. My lungs burned. My body screamed to run, but I was nailed to the floor. The man lifted his left hand. Something wet hit the ground. Splat, splat, splat. I couldn't see it in the dark room he stood in, but I knew. He was bouncing it. The tumor. That sound broke me. My legs moved before my brain did. I bolted. The lights flickered once, twice, then died, swallowing me in black. I ran blind, gagging on the smell that chased me all the way home. I left all of my belongings there. I would never return to that hospital, or any hospital for that matter. I'm writing this since I need help. Professionally? Maybe. The psychiatrist I spoke with on the phone told me that I needed to come to her office for an evaluation. That's out of the question, as I'm unable to leave my room. My bed is rotting with me. The sheets are stiff with sweat and feces. Plates of food fester on the floor, crawling with flies that buzz against the curtains. The air stinks of mildew and waste. But worse than that is that I smell him. I can no longer work. I fear living. I might not even be able to sleep. I take pills, really strong ones, but they don't really work. Nothing helps me from the repulsiveness, the barbarity of the scene that's been replaying in front of me every single day on the wooden floor of my bedroom. The eyes staring right into mine, the cutting, the sound of the large, round ball hitting the floor when the flesh starts to give in as it detaches and rolls under my bed. Bleeding and crawling in under my bed, the dead man shuffles around to find his ball, rolling it out, grabbing it, and holding it in his arms as his face turns with the widest grin. "I'm free now," he whispers, blood foaming at his lips. "I'm finally human again." And then it's over, for a couple of minutes, until it all repeats again, and again, and again. It's constant. I cannot move. I'm living in my bed. Well, to say that I'm living is an overstatement. I haven't eaten since this happened. I can't leave my bed. I have my computer, my phone. I know that no one will believe me, but I'm really struggling for help. I just sit here, tight in the corner of my bed, pressed against the wall. I'm living in my own waste. I'm scared, embarrassed, and confused. Please, I'm begging you. How can I make this stop? Thank you for staying until the end of the show. I appreciate you giving me some of your time, and I look forward to seeing you again. If you can tell me what you enjoyed about today's episode, that will help me so I can know what things to give you more of. This story came from Reddit user Own Entertainment 540, so I hope you enjoyed it and comment down below if you did. The original story for this episode will be linked in the description down below. And if you want to hear more of my voice, you can listen to all the episodes in the series here. This is typically the part of the show where I tell you can find me on Spotify and other places, but part of the reason I was gone for so long was because Spotify actually took down my entire show. According to them, I was uploading content from Inviso Dark when I wasn't allowed to, even though I am Inviso Dark. I tried to fight them to return my show back to me for months, but I got no helpful or useful answers from them, and they literally told me there was nothing I can do to get my show back and denied all of my appeals. So, that's why you haven't seen as much of me as of recent. But, worry not, because until I find a solution, YouTube will be my home for now, where you can catch my daily episodes of chilling stories from the dark. That's me, by the way. I'm the dark. And if you have a story you would like to recommend to me, you can reach out to me via Reddit, Discord, or email. All of those will also be in the description down below. Again, if you enjoyed today's episode, tune in for the next story or just go back and watch the last one. But until then, I hope you watch the shadows that lurk just beyond your sight. Thank you for listening, and to all, a good night.